Hi guys, my name is Nikita. I am a film, game, television and trailer composer. I have been endorsed by PreSonus for almost 6 years now, and I've been their official artist since 2012, I think. I've been using Studio One and Fire Studio since I started my career, probably my professional career that is. And now what I have for you today is another great toy in form of hardware created by PreSonus, which is called Atom. It is a sort of a beat machine, loop slicer, beat maker, sampler, you name it. You know, there are many different names for this type of unit, but what it does will surely amaze you, and I will show you right now how I managed to integrate Atom into my cinematic workflow. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's go into Studio One and I will show you how Atom works for films, games, TV, trailers, and all the goodies that you see and hear on the media today. Let's get going. Okay guys, so here we are in Studio One. I have my project open, which is basically a short trailer piece for that I composed using only Impact XT with basically Atom here that you can see. So I managed to, basically import all sorts of various instruments here into this, into the pads. And let me just first play you a piece of music, and then I will tell you all that you want to know, and all that you need to know basically about what I did here. So here we go. And then it starts again because it was low. But as you can see, one of the best things about Atom here that I really like are the options for basically transport bar that is completely synchronized to Studio One. So in other words, I can stop, I can play my entire project. As you can see, I can basically, click, use a metronome, whatever channel that I choose in here, I can click record, and basically, I can record it. So first things first, the transport bar is super helpful, and it's right next to me all the time because I'm using it every time when I'm using Studio One instead of pressing space or whatever. I also have a fader port, but it's a little bit across the desk, so sometimes I'm only using it basically to do automations with its fader. But most of the time for transport controls inside Studio One specifically, I'm using Atom. So as you can see, my Atom is all shiny and colorful. So in other words, I color coded every different type of sound that I used in this project. So for example, the yellow ones here are loops, because Impact XT can trigger loops. You can basically, you can make a loop out of a sound, or you can just create it as a one-shot sample, but I tend to use it here as a loop. So I have these two loops here. The green ones are my sort of like low impacts, like sub booms and kicks. So for example, if I you can see if I click here on in impact, Atom will also glow here. Just one more time, see? It glows because it is basically triggered. But if I click on Atom, it will also send signal to impact XT, you see, or kick, or whatever, like hit, trailer hit or stuff like that, see? So it's always synchronized. You can trigger various samples for this thing. So the blue ones are my trailer hits, like I said, you know. The red ones are Brahms. Sorry if you're hearing some messages, but my my cell phone is probably signing out. And the red ones are Brahms, like I said. So this is the one. This is like a mellower type of sound. The bright blue ones, these Cyan, or how do you call this color, I don't know, these are the alarms. So basically signals that are disturbing, like, you know, like a short type of thing, or something that's really, you know. Impact is a big trailer impact that is like in orange color, so see, stuff like this. And I have these pink ones, which is like a shorter riser, you know, and it's loopable basically. I created it to be loopable, you know. And then I have a longer riser, see. It's a long riser, but basically what it does is that, you know, it has sort of a fade out a little bit to it. A tail, not a fade out, a tail, I'm sorry. And the other little thingy here, which is a downer, basically it creates like a boom type of sound, you know, like soft, like this. This one also fades out basically, but it has a little bit of an impact, transition to it and whatnot. So all of my samples here are mostly made so they follow the tempo. The loops themselves, I managed to quantize them on bars. So whenever they are following tempo, they are being quantized by bars, so I can stretch them, I can do whatever I want with them. So another good thing that I like to integrate Atom with Impact in order to create these types of sounds is basically I have these filters here, you see, these guys here. So I can, you know, move them with my mouse or anything, but I have these 4 knobs here on Atom that are basically, you know, just MIDI assignable to whatever I need. So for example, if I click on my tension loop and I click on filter on it, and I'm like moving this knob number 1, it's already assigned in Studio One here on this blue arrow, so I can basically, you know, just move it like this. Here's an example. If I start, for example, if I start this tension loop, you know, it's pumping, you know, it has that thing, you know, but what if I don't want to make it start, if I want to build more tension? What if I do a filter cutoff, like let's say at half here, and it will start like sort of like muffled type of sound, like it's coming from the background, and then it's like approaching and approaching, which is pretty cool actually. Let me show you. And it also goes for the intro loop. Whatever, mind you, whatever button here, pad that I click, Atom will immediately send a signal to Impact, and the view on the Impact's GUI will change to the sample that I'm triggering. So if I press the yellow one, you see it's this one. If I press this one, you get the gif. So for example, this intro loop is assigned to my second loop here. See, I can do this like. One thing that I absolutely love about Impact's filter, that I can give a little bit of punchiness and drive to my samples that I'm triggering by using Atom. So basically, I always like to give some of my sounds just a slight bit of a punch and a little bit of a drive to them. And all of my sounds here, as you can see, basically that goes for any type of sound out there. You see, some of these samples here, like these hits, I need them to be snappy, like, or that type of thing. But these two that are snappy, I usually do the lower the bar on decay here at the amp section, just so it doesn't, fade out that long, and their filters are basically, opened almost all the time. So all of my outputs here from Impact are connected to my mixer as separate outputs, so I can mix every single one of them separately, in order to have a greater control on my mixer and whatnot. So what I wanted to say here is actually it's easier if you have it's easier to mix on the go, especially when you're working on in trailer music industry. A lot of people, my colleagues, will know that there's not enough time almost all the time. You don't have enough time because the client calls you today and they need that music yesterday. So usually you need to work really fast and you need to do everything inside a project. So tactile controls that I have on Atom here, like these 4 knobs, my pads, transport buttons, everything, the options to actually use separate outputs for my Impact is really helpful. And inside Studio One, I can always bounce every clip individually for greater control. But basically what I did here, what I showed you in the first part of this video, is basically a full project for a trailer teaser that is already submitted to a client. It's approved, and basically what I did was I only used Atom. I used Impact inside Studio One to trigger samples. I automated all the stuff that I need by using these 4 knobs, and inside Studio One I just added my regular Studio One plugins here that you can see. I'm using plugins that are in the box basically with Studio One, because all of these samples are already pre-mixed and everything, so I just need to tweak them just tiny little bit, so I don't need to use anything bigger than that. Anything heavier than that on my CPU. It's just surgical tweaks that I need. So yeah, that's basically how I work with Atom and how I work with Impact. One great thing about Impact and Atom, how they integrate together, as you can see, when I switch to a bank here that says A, this is where my entire project here is with the samples that I created. But if I click on B, for example, Atom is already set up in advance, so I can, you know, transport all of my, actually import all of the samples here from my project here, and I can do it on the go in Studio One. So for example, if I press F5 here, you know, I can go to my files, you know, I can go to my projects here, you know, import anything, you know, anything else that I need, go to samples, for example, and I can go into my, you know, trailer libraries, the stuff that I'm, for example, using, stuff like these or something, and then I just simply just go and import something. Let's say, for example, stuff like, let's say drum loops, for example. I can import this one. Here I have already a new one, and I can trigger it. But you see, when it's set as one shot, you just need to click it and it will continue. But if you click it on loop, you actually need to hold it while it lasts, and then it will loop. When you click on normal, for example, inside of Impact, it will just play it to the from start to the end here, and that's it. For example, you know, but sometimes only when it is in loop, it will, you know, switch to. But one of the best things that you can do is basically to quantize it to bars and make it follow your tempo. So my tempo here is at 110 BPM. So now, but here's the thing, now, there it is. You know, it speeds up. So, for example, I can clear my pad here on right click of the mouse, and then, you know, you can add the sample if you click here, and then you can find it inside your library and stuff like that. But it's way easier and way more intuitive to do it from inside Studio One. So for example, I am about to create my own you know, bank of sounds that I use for trailers and for games, and I will have each of these libraries filled with, you know, for example, with just impact and stuff. So for example, let's go to booms and kicks, for example, and then I go into a, you know, into a boom sound here, or another boom sound. I'm like just basically doing this, you know, and then I have these. But the best thing that you can do is basically one-shot sample is pretty cool, but you have to wait for it to finish. Now when you're on normal, you know, as soon as you remove your finger from the pad, it will stop. So for example, you can basically, you know, you're your own ADSR, in the lack of a better expression, you know. So yeah, I can always, you know, make a release sample just a tiny little bit, you know, in order to, or like this. Yeah, so it doesn't end abruptly, so it just has a tiny little bit of, and I can always, you know, add just a tiny little bit of drive and a little bit of punch, and my filter will need to stay open in order for these two to be active. The filter needs to stay all the way. I mean, you don't need to keep it open, but you can always cut off, keep it at maximum, but the filter needs to be active. So, you know, you are getting this sort of like a Battlefield, Call of Duty, Doom type of snappy drive, you know, like. See, it sounds really juicy. Or this one, for example, but this one doesn't have. So you need basically to, you know, tweak every sample, you know. And so basically my library library B would be like these booms and impacts. I can create a library C, bank, actually it's called bank, it's not library. So the library C can be my hits, for example, like let's say hybrid hits, or, you know, I can just do these, transpose them and do whatnot, you know. But then you go back to everything at normal, you know. Yeah. And you can color code them. Basically where you see this, you can just, you know, click it on red and it will, you know, it will change its color on Atom. So let's say like all of my hits here are going to be red. Like you can color code, basically you have like 16 hits here, so some bigger ones, Meteor, can be like red, you know, high pitched hits, you know, in a higher frequency range, they can be like yellow or green, whatnot. So you can color code basically see how Atom basically changes its color to whatever you choose here. And when I click on bank here, I can shift to my A, I can shift to my B, and I can shift to my C. So I have like 8 banks here that are color coded that I can switch to. I can go to H, I can go to G, I can go back to my A, and which is actually a very good thing when I shift to my, so for example, if I'm working on this bigger type of project, my booms, can go to stereo. This is where already my stereo outputs are connected to the project. But if I was making a new project, basically with a new template for Impact and Atom, I would probably, you know, just use this entire rig here. This entire bank B would have like output 1, and then I would shift to bank C, and then bank C would be output like 2 stereo outputs if they're stereo. If they are like, for example, my subs can be D, I can import subs, sub impacts, and I can then basically just go here. I have like a sub sound already. I can click it there and it will be mono in sub, because subs are usually better for, you know, just being in mono and having that low end register in the center, you know. So basically this is how I am working with Atom and impacts. You know, I can set my loop times inside of a song, inside of a library, my song setup. When I click on it, you see I can basically have all of these controls for you know, for deleting sounds, for duplicating them. For example, if I close this one here and close this, I can click here and I can, for example, delete it, but let's not delete this sound. Let's go back to it. I can set my tempo. I can, for example, duplicate this type of sound. If I click on duplicate, it will duplicate it. I can delete it again. So basically, and then I'm straight back. If you click on this setup button here, these are your controls. These are the where you see 1/4 time, 180, you know, quarter note, 8 note, 16 note, all of these things here that are glowing. Basically this is your quantize. So if I click on like 1/8, it will quantize everything to 1/8, it will quantize it to, you know, basically as soon as you click on setup, you know, it goes back here and then it goes back to your samples, you know. So yeah, that's about it actually. It's not nuclear physics, it's not astrophysics, it's pretty straightforward to use actually this Atom with Studio One. For example, I have the event here, my editor. Oh, for example, if I click on my, you know, on my any MIDI file here, for example, and I can click it on the editor, you know, click on this one here and then click on the editor, it opens my MIDI editor. And then I have these controls here for duplicating, deleting, increasing velocities. For example, if I want to increase the velocity of this sample only, I can just click on my buttons here and you can see how it basically goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Yeah. I know this video has probably been a rant. Maybe I'm not that experienced in doing presentations, but I really wanted to introduce you guys to the power of Atom and its integration with Studio One. So, you know, I hope you like this, and yeah, that's basically it. You know, just go check out Atom, check out Studio One, be creative. Basically this is the whole point of creating music, especially for the media, is to be creative. So yeah, that's it, you know. So guys, there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I really hope that you've learned something new and useful from this tutorial. If you like Atom, you can freely visit PreSonus official page of the product and you will find more information there. Until then, I am sending you my finest regards and I hope to see you in the next video. So keep it real, people, and see you next time. Bye!